Throwback to December 2022. In the middle of a field somewhere in southern Ontario. It's freezing. A 23-year-old kid is on his knees in the dirt. His hands are zip-tied behind his back. That's when a man standing over him pulls out a gun, points it at him, and starts counting down. 3, 2, 1. The gun fires, but the bullet goes past his head. It was a miss on purpose. They're not trying to kill him yet. They want him to be terrified first. This is Aiden Pleterski. A few months ago, he was living in an $8.4 million mansion, driving a $1 million McLaren, posting photos with celebrities. People called him the Crypto King. Now he's begging for his life in the middle of nowhere in this frozen field. And this is just his first night of torture. To understand how we got here, we need to talk about the $40 million that he stole from innocent people. Tell me that intro wasn't crazy, guys. We got a wild story to cover today, so grab your water, grab your popcorn, do whatever you gotta do, sit back and relax, and get ready, because this one is something to remember. So this kid, Aiden Pleterski, was born in 1998 in a suburb about 30 minutes east of Toronto. He was a pretty normal kid who had a very normal upbringing. Around 2015, he was really into Call of Duty and figured out that he could use cryptocurrency to buy and sell in-game items on third-party marketplaces. That was his introduction to this world of cryptocurrency, and fast forward to 2020, COVID hits, everybody's stuck at home, and suddenly everybody and their grandma is getting into crypto and meme stocks. Because of that, Aiden starts trading more seriously with a few $1,000s here and there from family members, plus money he was getting from Canadian government COVID relief checks. And from the outside here, it looks like he had wild success. By December 2020, he had moved into a rental that costs $9,000 a month. Just a few months later, in early 2021, he's living in an $8.4 million lakefront mansion, paying $45,000 a month in rent. Not to mention the cars. Let's get into that. This kid had 11 owned vehicles plus 4 more leased. It was like a GTA garage, a $1 million McLaren, multiple Lamborghinis, a Ferrari 488, watches worth up to $600,000, $500,000 worth of video game skins. Not to mention when he was streaming and he casually mentioned that he had spent $150,000 on Legos. 150 grand on Legos, guys. So yeah, people are seeing this online as he continues to flex, and they start paying attention to this kid because, like, where did all this money come from? Well, behind the scenes, Aiden had started a company called AP Private Equity Limited, and he's telling people that he can make them rich, no strings attached. And people believe him because, I mean, look at this guy's life. He looks legit. A bunch of articles also popped up online, like this one, that refers to Pleterski as one of the most influential and well-respected traders in the game today. Here's another one with the headline, "Meet the young Canadian investor who is taking the world of crypto by storm." By the time everything was said and done, Aiden had received a total of $41.5 million from people convinced that this 22-year-old's investment strategies can make them rich. And well, almost none of that money was actually ever invested or returned. So what the hell was going on behind the curtains, and how did this kid's lie keep on going? This kid was basically full of crap. He told people that he could change their lives, took their money, and just spent it. And for a while, it actually worked. People saw the mansion, the cars, the articles hyping him up, and they kept on investing. But eventually, some of them started asking questions because, well, they hadn't seen a dime in returns while Aiden was out living his best life showing off online. At one point, some investors demanded proof that he was actually trading, and so he showed them pictures and videos of account statements from FX Choice, a foreign exchange brokerage based in Belize, and these screenshots claimed to show $311 million in assets under his company. But when one skeptical investor decided to verify independently and contacted FX Choice directly, the brokerage confirmed that neither Pleterski nor AP Private Equity Limited had ever held accounts with him. Yeah, Aiden completely faked the screenshots, and those articles that I mentioned earlier talking him up like he was the next big thing, he just paid for people to publish those. Bankruptcy investigators eventually figured out that out of all that money, only $670,000 was actually invested in crypto. That's 1.6% of the money. Less than 2% of this money ever touched a trading platform. This was not even a crypto fund at that point. This was essentially a GoFundMe for one kid's lifestyle. Over 160 people gave Aiden their money. Retirees, parents, people who trusted him with their life savings. Some people even sadly borrowed against their lines of credits to give Aiden money. That means they're in debt for money that they thought was being invested. Meanwhile, he's on vacations, actively posting online, and even live streaming on Kick. He's showing off this lavish lifestyle funded by their money. And it actually actually got me thinking about how most of us handle our money and who we actually trust with it. Which brings me to today's sponsor, Chime. Look, building real wealth is not about gambling on some 22-year-old's investment strategy. It's about making smart, consistent moves with your money, and Chime's high-yield savings account lets you earn up to 3% APY on your savings. That is 7 times the national average. Your money grows while it sits there with no monthly fees. There's no minimum balance requirements, and your deposits are FDIC insured through Chime's bank partners. They are the most loved banking app with millions of members. You can even get your paycheck up to 2 days early with direct deposit, and they've got this automatic roundup feature that saves you spare change without you even thinking about it. So while Aiden was faking screenshots and burning through other people's money on Lamborghinis, you could be building real savings the smart way. Click the link in my description or scan the QR code on screen to get started, and right now you can get up to $350 exclusively through my link. Now let's get back to Aiden. Even as people started to realize they weren't getting their money back, he just continued to actively post and brag online while ignoring every single withdrawal request. You'd think someone committing this crime would want to lay low, but no, he's just posting away, flexing, streaming on Kick. It's ridiculous, actually. That being said, it was really only a matter of time before he got caught, and for him, it was way worse than just legal consequences. In April of 2022, the first lawsuit against Pleterski was filed, and to learn a little bit more about what was going on behind the scenes and what Aiden was doing with this money, some investors hired a guy who went by Mike. He was basically some guy who was hired to pressure Aiden into paying up, a fixer. Mike started disrupting his life, showing up places, and making things uncomfortable. And it worked. By May, Aiden moved out of his mansion because people kept on showing up to harass and intimidate him. But Mike also hacked into Aiden's cloud data, and that's when everyone finally discovered that the whole thing was a scam, and that none of their money was actually being traded. Soon, the court froze all of his assets worldwide. The police kept on receiving complaints, and on August 9th, 2022, Aiden Pleterski was forced into bankruptcy. But not everyone was satisfied with letting the legal process play out. This is where it gets really ugly for Aiden, so hold on tight. One of the people who lost money to Aiden was this guy named Akil Haywood. He was 41 years old, and he had invested $740,000 with AP Private Equity Limited. Remember this, because what happens next is one of the most insane revenge stories I've ever covered. It's December 2nd, 2022. A few months after the bankruptcy, a guy approaches Aiden at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in downtown Toronto. He's calling himself Slime Dog Millionaire. That was his nickname, I guess. Can we just sit with that name for a second, please? Slime Dog Millionaire? That sounds like an Xbox gamer tag I would have heard back in 2012. Anyways, the guy's real name is Darren Akeem Pong. I think I pronounced that right. And anyways, he's there with another guy named Rakeem Henry. They hit it off and tell Aiden that they want to invest. 3 days later, on December 5th, there's a second meeting. Aiden gets into a Dodge Ram pickup truck with these guys, and the second he's in the back seat, Rakeem Henry presses a gun into his ribs. They take his passport, cash, and wallet. They zip tie his hands, they put a bag over his head, and they drive. What followed was 3 days of torture across multiple locations in southern Ontario. The first night, they took him to a random field in the middle of nowhere. They put him on his knees. One of the kidnappers points a gun at his head, counts down from 3, and fires a shot right beside his head. The ransom was $3 million. Aiden was saying that his landlord Sandeep had his money to try and save himself, even though that was a complete lie and Sandeep did not have the money. On day 2, they took him to a junkyard. This is where it got even worse. He was waterboarded twice, burned with cigarettes, and beaten with golf clubs. One of the kidnappers cut pieces of flesh from his hand. From there, he was driven to a house where they kept him in a basement and forced him to record this 12-minute apology video at gunpoint. After that, they moved him to another area where he was beaten with golf clubs once again. One of the kidnappers also threatened to put a hit on his parents. So here's how it ended. A ransom exchange was set up for December 7th at a Tim Hortons, but the kidnappers' lookout spotted a police SWAT team, and so they called it off. This is the most Canadian kidnapping ransom exchange ever. Of course it was a Tim Hortons. The next day, December 8th, they released Aiden in downtown Toronto near his landlord's place. They told him to come up with the money soon and warned that there would be a lot more trouble if he went to the police. Now, here's where the whole situation gets even crazier, and it's the most unexpected detail I found while researching this story. Remember how I mentioned that the bankruptcy process was ongoing and people were looking into it? Well, as part of that process, the court appoints inspectors to represent the investors' interests. And guess who was elected as one of those inspectors? Akil Haywood. He was the guy who invested $740,000 and allegedly planned this entire kidnapping that I just told you about. This guy was literally overseeing the bankruptcy proceedings designed to help victims recover their money while allegedly orchestrating the torture of the person who scammed them. That is insane. So what happened to everyone involved in this entire situation? 5 men were eventually charged in the kidnapping. Akil Haywood, of course, is charged as the alleged mastermind with all of this. He maintains his innocence as of now, and his trial is set for November 2026. Darren Akiampong, Slime Dog millionaire himself, the guy who posed as a crypto investor and carried out most of the torture, he ended up pleading guilty to 9 charges in October of 2025. When police arrested him, he was driving a black Mercedes with the same license plate used during the kidnapping. They also found a gun on him, which apparently was the same gun that was used in the kidnapping. Rakeem Henry and 2 others who were involved in the kidnapping also have various trials scheduled throughout 2026. As for Aiden Pleterski, well, you'd think getting kidnapped and tortured might humble a guy, maybe make him lay low for a while, but actually he didn't. Nope, that's not enough, I guess. After the bankruptcy and the kidnapping, investigators found out that he was still living lavishly, traveling to the UK, Los Angeles, Miami, Australia, and continuing to post online. Oh, and the best part, police allege that he was still trying to find new investors as recently as February 2024, after getting his ass beat for 3 days straight. Still trying to run the same scheme. Like, what? In May of 2024, after an 18-month investigation, the largest fraud investigation in the area's entire history, Aiden was finally arrested and charged with fraud over $5,000 and money laundering. His fraud trial is scheduled for October 2026. If convicted, he faces up to 14 years in prison. In the meantime, he actually has a bit of a presence online, posting on TikTok and Instagram occasionally. His last post seems to be from March 2025, so it looks like he has taken a bit of a break. And there's one more twist I have to tell you about because I find it so interesting. Remember that $8.4 million mansion that Aiden was renting? In May of 2023, the Canadian star NBA player Shai Gilgeous-Alexander bought it. He paid $8.45 million for his dream home. But just 4 days after moving in, a stranger showed up at his door demanding to know where Pleterski was and refusing to leave. Some dude was just like, "Where are you? Where is he? Tell me where he is." Shai's girlfriend was just standing there like, "What are you talking about? What's going on?" When his girlfriend called the police, they told her that people had already tried to break into the property multiple times, and someone had even threatened to burn it down. So obviously the NBA star moved out immediately, and he never went back. He sued the sellers for not disclosing any of this and won. The court ordered them to buy the mansion back. So yeah, the legacy of the Crypto King was so toxic that even an NBA player had to fled his dream house because of it. And just this past September, another report came out that Aiden pleaded guilty to assault and harassment charges in a separate domestic violence case. What a great guy this dude is. Anyways, I will say it must suck going from living like the most lavish life ever to being back at your parents' home in Toronto's suburbs waiting for a court date where you're facing up to 14 years in prison. But it really does just go to show there's never a shortcut to anything. You can fake it for a while, but eventually it all catches up. Hope y'all liked this video. I had a great time making it. Stay tuned for the next one. Subscribe if you haven't. Peace.